Welcome to the Booksmith and to Alembic. Thank you all so much for being here tonight to celebrate the new novel by Andrew Sean Greer. Make some noise. Yeah. Fade into it. You guys are going to be thunderous before the end of the evening, so just brace yourselves. My name's Evan. I'm the event manager here at Booksmith. I know this is more of a party than a book event, so I'm going to kind of just get out of the way mostly. You guys all know and love Andy as I do, and we are thrilled, as always, to host him for the launch of a new book. We've had the privilege and true delight of hosting all of Andy's book releases and are so proud of that fact. It's been such a treat to see his star rise. I didn't mean to make a pun, but since the first brilliant book, The Path of Minor Planets, which I'll never forget reading, and it's, Andy, I love your work so much, and I know everyone here does. Like, has everybody here read less? Yes. Everyone's read less, so I'm not going to set up the book. I think Andy will do that. I really just want to turn things over to Andrew Sean Greer and to celebrate him in this beautiful book, Less is Lost. Thank you all so much for being here tonight.
Wow, that is very, I don't know if you guys can even think about, after many years of not seeing anyone but my book or readers or anything, to have an event where they're like, it's going to be in a bar with bunch of strangers, and I was like, no one's gonna come to that. And then you all did, because you don't have anything else to do. I should say, first of all, if you walk into an independent bookstore, it is a mortal sin to walk out without buying a book. It doesn't have to be my book, or Carl Sonlein's book, or Lucy Corin's book, or other local writers you could meet tonight and support, but it should be a book or magazine. So I have to do that too. So just keep drinking and it'll come to you somehow. I was so nervous tonight to do this that I beforehand I went to Wasteland, and I wanted to buy something that'll feel like armor, and I was like, what do you have that'll make me feel strong for like my first public reading in years? And it was like 80s businesswoman suit. Do you want to be Melanie Griffith for the evening? So I am. That's where it came from. My friend Sue picked it out. I actually haven't done any events, and actually, strangely, contractually, this isn't supposed to be a book event. It's a book party for some reason. So I'll probably not talk that long, or I don't have a shtick yet on the road or anything. But I will say that it was sort of shocking over these last couple years on Instagram to get notes from people around the world about reading less, a book that I wrote because I was afraid of turning 50 and that no one would ever read me again. And I did turn 50, but people did read me again. And even notes from like a young woman in Indonesia who was going through some life transition, and the book made her feel hopeful, but certainly queer people around the world. And it was been really not the thing that most writers are used to being thrown into. Or like these two men named Aaron, who seem to be dating each other for a long time. And their names are Aaron 1 and Aaron 2. And they said, I could choose which one. And then I said, I think the audience should choose which one. So the round of applause is Aaron 1, the one in green. You want to stand up for us? Is it Aaron 1 in green or Aaron 2 in white? Can we have applause? Or Aaron 1 in white and Aaron 2 in green? Finally, okay, it's settled. And I want to also say that my mother is here tonight. She's in the back row here. There she is, taking off a mask, with her partner, Linda. And I'd be remiss not to say that she has a book coming out in January called The Chemistry of Cooking. Chemistry for Cooks, that I have read in many different drafts, and it's truly brilliant. Yeah, it's really, really good book. So pre-order now from your independent bookstore. And then maybe I'll talk about this book. I was in 2016. There was an election, you might remember, a presidential one, the result of which was maybe a surprise to a lot of people in this room and a disappointment, and certainly to me. And I was told on a lot of social media that I've since left that I was lacking empathy for other parts of the country that I didn't understand. And I thought, well, I'm not lacking in empathy. That's like, I have a lot of flaws, but that's not one. But understanding I'll go for. So I rented an RV and I went for 3 weeks through the Southwest, and then I rented another RV and I went for 3 weeks in the Deep South. And I had rules for myself. I could only go to small towns, and I had to go to bars and sit at the bar and talk to people. And I had to go to, if it was a restaurant, I had to sit at the counter, because there's always a counter, and talk to the wait staff or the people next to me, and just not ask them about politics, but just about their lives. Because, like, I don't know, I was scared of that part of the whole area of the country I'd never been to. And when I write a book, I go straight for what I'm scared of, like turning 50 certainly seemed to scare me at the time. I won a Pulitzer for it, so now I'm not scared anymore. It was fine. I highly recommend turning 50. But this, I was like, I am scared of Alabama. Like, I am scared shitless. So I did. I went there, and I went to Walmart, and I got like cargo shorts and like a big American flag T-shirt and a baseball cap, and I got those wraparound sunglasses, you know, that like dudes wear. Yeah, that was the hardest part. I was like, I can't wear that. Like, that's the worst. And I have friends who wear them. You probably wear them, Alan. Okay. And I was like, and I put American flags on the van and thought, I'll be safe. And like everywhere I went, they knew I was gay. Like some tiny town, I would swagger in, put something on the jukebox, get a Bud Light, and they'd be like, where are you from, ma'am? They were surprisingly kind to me, which I think is not always true. But my mother's advice to me was, she said, you just say sir and ma'am. You sir and ma'am them to death, and you'll be just fine. So it turned out fine. But it wasn't really necessarily funny, I have to say. Like, what I found was a lot of people told me really painful stories of their lives. People will tell a stranger anything, even in a diner. So, and I was such a neutral presence, being like, wow, I really like your ring. Where'd you get it? Well, my first husband, you know, there we go. You know, like, where are you going to make out of that big squash over there? Well, I have a friend I have to make, you know, like anything would go straight to the hardest story of their life. Because even the police guy who stopped, I sort of slid through a stop sign, and he pulled me over, and he asked me the questions the police officers would ask me. Are you carrying any artifacts? Are you high on LSD? Are you an American citizen? And I said, no, yes. And so how'd you get this police job? He was like, well, I really wanted to be a Marine. And they would all just tell me all this stuff. And it's not necessarily in this book, but it gave me some empathy, which I might not have right now at this time. But at that time, it was really touching. And mostly what I found was funny was me, as always, because I was the thing that was utterly out of place and didn't understand the way things worked, or how you're supposed to dance to that particular song, or how to throw a dollar bill on the ceiling of a bar so that it sticks. There's a trick to it. I learned all that stuff, which probably everybody already fucking knows, but I didn't know. So I'm just going to read you a little thing. There's no need to set it up, because the plot is as silly as less. It's just an excuse to get him on the road. So I'll just start on the road where he's going to, well, it doesn't matter. You'll get it. The following interview is translated from the German. Mr. Less, thank you for coming on the program and for joining us from the United States. Here is my thanks. I'm sure our audience is delighted you could do this interview in German. So few Americans speak our language. Here is my German. Ah ha ha. We only have a minute, but I wanted to ask about your upcoming travel. I hear you're going on tour with the writer H.H. Mandern, who's quite famous here in Germany. It seems a mental illness Mr. Mandarin has asked me to go with him but he has yes. Yes, indeed. You seem to be very different sorts of writers. We hear your next book, Swift, is a comedy, and Mr. Mandarin is known for his science fiction, not for his comedy. There is a well-known robot detective. Yes, we know that. Why do you think Mr. Mandarin asked for you in particular? We had interview. He liked my interrogation of him. Have you interrogated him? I have, in fact. It was difficult. I think it's not unfair to say he's famous for being a little touchy. Some say he's not mentally stable. Are you nervous? I do not understand. Are you nervous to be intimately entangled with such an erratic companion? I do not understand. Are you nervous? We are not to share a hotel room. Ah ha ha. Well, Mr. Les, with your new book and with your tour, we in Germany wish you the best of luck. Ha ha ha. Les flies from San Francisco to Palm Springs, a city located in the lower left-hand coin pocket of America. Les places his bag with its special electric razor, books, and favorite pink sweater in the overhead compartment and seats himself beside the window. He looks out at the wing. In his panicked state, he wonders whether man can really fly. And then the attendant wearily offers him peanuts. Les giggles at the very notion. Peanuts at 30,000 feet. To Arthur Les, anything at high altitude feels miraculous. He simply cannot believe it is happening. Perhaps it correlates in his system with quasi-forbidden boyhood delights, such as flashlight reading under the covers and smuggling chocolates into a treehouse. An offer of wine, and Les shivers at the impossibility. How do they get wine up here? To him, it is as delicious as a cup of lemonade bought from a 5-year-old stand, which is to say, always delicious. The same goes for the food. When he unwraps the foil to expose microwave chicken or curdled lasagna, you would think he'd found a golden ticket to a chocolate factory. His joy seems endless. But an end everything has. Not long after take-up, other passengers become alarmed about a persistent buzzing. Les joins in the speculation. Is a piece of the plane loose? Something wrong with the pressurization? Soon the attendants are involved. The captain is summoned. He attunes himself to the sound, then vanishes. Passengers, we are cleared for emergency descent into Palm Springs ahead of other aircraft. The planes need minor repairs, but it will not affect this short flight. They begin their emergency descent. Les is terrified. What minor repairs? What crucial device has come fatally and noisily undone? It doesn't take long, of course, for him to realize the source of the threat. It is his special electric razor. It has somehow turned on by itself in the overhead storage. He says nothing. The special electric razor, a skilled ventriloquist, throws its noise everywhere in the cabin, so he remains unincriminated. Les's plan is to wait for landing and then dash for the razor and diffuse it before anyone gets wise. All goes well at first. His glass of water is collected, his minor trash, and then they have arrived in Palm Springs. A bell of freedom goes off, and Les leaps to unzip his bag, only to be confettied with pink fluff. All through the flight, the razor has not merely been alarming the crew. It has decided to devour its companion, his sweater. Such is love. Arthur Les, still decorated with pink fluff, is picked up at the Palm Springs airport by a publicist named Eleanor and taken into Palm Springs proper, where he experiences, in the sudden transition from northern to southern California, a shock similar to a diver's on rising too fast from the depths. Oh, California, the statistically impossible blondness, the ubiquity of sunglasses as if everyone has just been to the ophthalmologist, the non-native date palms, like many non-natives seem positively patriotic about their newfound country, the pretense in sun and warmth in chill October, such as here in Eleanor's convertible where to counteract the cold, she's turned the heat up high. It feels to Les like the kind of deep act of denial seen only at family holidays. And let's be honest, he's afraid, this is probably some plot stuff, afraid of money and travel and humiliations yet unmet. For rather than enter the warm embrace of a beloved in a cold northeastern state, Arthur Les has entered some ultraviolet nightmare. for which no one could be prepared, not even with sun protection. And what new loneliness is in store? For surely he will barely meet this famous author with his famous fedora and famous pug. Les will be alone in a hotel room attending meetings for the prize committee, more plot stuff, before they fly to Santa Fe. And more, he has traveled even farther away from me, Freddie Palou, our narrator. Eleanor takes Les to a building that looks like a giant metal avocado, but is in fact an auditorium, leads him to the avocado's green room, avocado green, nobody is kidding, and abandons him beside a fruit plate and a minibar. Les manages to make himself a mini cocktail, but sips it cautiously. He doesn't want to be drunk on stage. His job is to evade attention almost entirely. It is to let the great author shine. It is to be as well remembered as the onstage chair and table, the glass of water, the spotlight, which is to say, not at all. Les feels highly qualified for this position. He's considering whether the time has arrived to eat his mini cocktail's cherry when a serious-looking man enters but does not glance at Arthur Les. He wears a headset over his gray curly hair and carries a clipboard, a sign he is in charge. Excuse me, Les says. Excuse me, when is Mr. Mandarn arriving? I have a quick phone meeting for a literary prize. And the man looks at him impatiently, taking in the bits of pink fluff. Mr. Mandarn will arrive shortly. So I have some time? The man has one of those dividing scars on his left eyebrow, like a dueling scar. He frowns. Mr. Mandarn's schedule is his own, Mr. Yes. It's Les, says Les. Arthur Les, not Yes. Has he become a James Bond villain? The man looks at his clipboard. I have yes written here. He crosses it out neatly. Could you let me know when Mr. Mandarn arrives? The man briefly considers Les. When Mr. Mandarn arrives, he says, you'll know. A best-selling author since his first book, Incubus, came out in 1978, followed by the controversial movie version. H. Mandarn instantly became a towering figure in the world of books. With his trademark fedora and pipe, his striped Vincent Price beard, drawing thousands of fans to his events and making headlines with rock star behavior such as trashing hotel rooms, setting money on fire, and trying to hijack a commercial plane to take him to Puerto Rico where it was already headed. He blamed it on prescription medicine, but nothing stopped his output. A novel, sometimes 2 a year, and not just any novels, but 600-page portraits of interstellar war and alien empire building that would take a normal human being a year just to type. Mandarn has never broken a sweat. One critic recently called him America's Dickens. Another, a crap factory. None of it has dulled his productivity, though he is now in his 80s. Arthur Les has met H. Mandarn before. It was in New York City 2 years ago or so when he interviewed the great man in public. This is proof that you don't have to read the first book to read this one, because I'm telling you the whole first book in boring paragraphs in this book. So just buy this one. It's faster. And while he gamely answered Les's questions for an hour, when the time came for questions from the audience, Mandarn turned his lonely eyes to Arthur Les. Les saw there the fluttering candle stub of despair, and then it went out. Well, Mr. Mandarn, you answer that fairly well in book 5 when you, Les went on, speaking Mandarnian as if possessed by his Holy Spirit. He saved the day. When the time was up, poor Mandarn could only whisper, is it over? And Les led him off stage to thunderous applause. Mandarn vanished to a hotel sickbed, and Les expected never to hear from the great man again. But he did hear from the great man again, because we find ourselves in a green room in Palm Springs. And I'm going to skip the prize committee. And, oh yes, man in the headset comes back. Mr. Yes! Yes. The man in the headset is not looking at Les, he is looking at his clipboard. He is also not listening to Les, he's listening to his headset. But he is indeed talking to Les. There seems to be a little problem, a problem with Mr. Mandarn. He's sick again? Sick? The man finally meets Les's eyes in concern. Why would you say that? No, he's not sick. It's just that Mr. Mandarn has yet to arrive. That's clear. So we're going to have to start without him. The audience can't wait any longer. But it's an interview with Mr. Mandarn. Do you think you could read something of yours as a kind of opening act? I think the audience wants Mr. Mandarn, not me. Well, they're very unhappy, the man says. They're starting to chant things. Do you perhaps have a piece that's long enough that it can cover us in case Mr. Manor doesn't show up, and yet short enough that if he arrives, you can stop instantly? Both long and short? Maybe an hour, but also like 5 minutes? Something for the science fiction crowd, but also not science fiction, because of course that's for Mr. Mandarin, if you see what I mean. So both science fiction and not science fiction. Yes. I can be old and young if you like, tall and short. I leave that to you. We have to get you on stage before there's a riot. Follow me, Mr. Yes. Arthur Less hears his name or something similar announced and stumbles onto a stage that has been painted white under bright white lights so that he stands dazzled by a whiteness that offers him confused, sporadic applause, something like the last kernels bursting in a popcorn maker. The chanting has stopped for the moment. He clears his throat before the microphone. He can sense in his blindness, I have to warn you, there's a really bad pun coming up. Like really bad. And I blame Oliver DeChico, who's here tonight. He clears his throat. It's really bad. He clears his throat before the microphone. He can sense in his blindness the mass of humanity already electric with disappointment. And from the darkness comes a call, "Who the hell are you?" From the same darkness, a shudder of laughter. Less answers, "I'm Arthur Less." "Where's H? Mr. Mandarin's getting ready. I'm the interviewer, so they sent me out here to read something. How can it be that he has been persuaded, like those prisoners forced to saw and sand their own coffins, into fitting his own mad humiliation?" He begins to sweat. All his handkerchiefs are in the green room covered in pink fluff. How happy they must be there. "I promise you we're not hiding Mr. Mandarin backstage somewhere," he says with a maddened grin. "He's on the way. In the meantime, they've asked me to read from my novel, Dark Matter." The crowd begins to chant, H, and he feels it jackhammering his bones. "Freddie," he thinks, "you don't know what I go through." Perhaps it is the snow-blinding effect of the auditorium lights or the high wind sound of the crowd, but the scene shakes and blurs in Les's vision. He is standing on another stage 40 years ago or more. The venue is smaller, the lights dimmer, but again a man is shouting to a packed house. It is his father, Lawrence Less. Bristling with sweat and decorated with fringed denim, his father moves around the stage like an earthbound anemone. He's yelling into a microphone. Less's mother is not present in this memory. There's only himself, his father, the lights, and the applause. People are being charmed. Something is being sold. What Les is doing on stage is a mystery as well. Surely he's part of his father's act. But all that remains is his father's flailing form. This is probably 6 months before the police begin their investigations, and the anemone vanishes from the scene and from Les's life on the lam from the law. Public anemone number 1. I just can't believe it stayed in till the final draft. It's almost over. We find our narrator, Les bellows into the microphone, and the audience quiets immediately as if he has uttered a malediction. They're listening, who knows why. Best not to ask. He's back in control. A tremor has taken hold of his right hand and makes the pages shake. There's no choice but to go on. "We find our narrator," he repeats, and his voice booms through the hall, "already in motion." The interrupting roar stops him. Mid-sentence. It is the audience on its feet. Beside him, Les sees the shadow that appears to be of a tall man with a helmet and a lance. But of course he knows exactly who it is. H. Mandarin has appeared to save the day. There, that's good enough. Right?
Y'all keep it going for Andrew Sean Greer. And keep it going until 10 o'clock. Yeah. Andy, I think you managed to pre-sign all the books, yeah? I think so. So if you got a book and it's signed already and you're like, I'm done with this place, you can just go. You can take off. But if you'd like to get your book personalized, or you'd like other books or other drinks, please hang out. The book sales are all next door at Alembic in the corner of the bar, and that's where Andy will be set up to sign. If you'll be so kind as to let him get there without showering him with adulation, you can do that in line at the table, and he'll spend some time with you there. I think that's it for me. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. I hope you have fun and really enjoy this beautiful book.